So I want to take just a moment to look back at last week. Last week's passage gives us a vision of what Luke heard when Jesus kind of gave the Beatitudes, right? It's different than the one that we're traditionally accustomed to hearing from the Gospel of Matthew. But Luke's version informs us about how we are blessed when we lose it all. And that sounds contradictory, I know. But he says, when we are hungry, when we shed tears, when someone cuts us down or torments us, we are blessed. Jesus also warns us in that teaching that if we think we have made it, so to speak, if we are truly satisfied with how we treat others, if we think everything is fun and games, and we live solely for the approval of others, there is trouble in store for us. And that's, again, contradictory to some of the things that we hear Jesus speaking, but it's important for us to understand that, yeah, there are times when things are tough. Or am I the only one that's experienced tough times in his life? Okay, good. And that kind of summarizes really succinctly or very quickly what Jesus taught according to Luke. The thing is, if we look at each of those individually, I think we get caught up and never truly see the forest for the trees, right? We get so entangled in each one of those that we forget to look at the whole. And when I think of the Beatitudes and this particular teaching from Luke, I envision Jesus trying to teach those around him that we are not in this alone, that there are others who need us as much as we need them in our lives. And I also see this teaching as a way to kind of knock us back into true focus of who we are and what we are to do in this world. They're hard words, right? I mean, it's hard to hear Jesus teaching us, you're going to run into trouble, right? God never promised us that bowl full of cherries without the pits. Or am I the only one that eats cherries with pits? Okay, good. But they are totally worth every moment of our days and our lives as each time that we get to study them. And I bring that up this morning because that's what Jesus used to introduce the topic we have before us this morning. You see, the passage that Phil read for us this morning is actually a continuation of that teaching on the plain. And they're once again really hard words for us to digest and process, maybe even harder to put into practice in our lives. And I don't want to waste any time giving you background, so we're going to jump right into these words this morning. And Jesus ends the previous discourse on the blessing and the woes by saying this, "But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you." Jesus is telling us something really important here about how the world is going to be able to tell that we are Christians, followers of Christ. And he first opens this with, to you who are willing to listen. To you who are willing to listen. And that's a really key phrase. Think back over your life. Think about a time when someone did something that cut you deep to your core, that caused you pain that lasted more than a few moments, or maybe caused you to want to take retaliation against the hurt and pain. Do each of you have something in mind along those lines? Yes? No? Okay, good. Can you still feel that pain? Can you still feel that hurt, that anguish, maybe even that rage or the anger that got you through? Maybe you're still a little angry about that situation that happened, or the pain that caused you, or the situation that caused you the pain. Are there still those feelings of hurt within your hearts? And be honest how you feel at this moment. if you still can imagine and feel that pain and that hurt and that anger and that rage, I'm here to tell you it's okay. It's okay to still feel that. You're human. That's how we were created. And I think we as humans have a really hard time dealing with hurt and pain. The thing is, though, Jesus desires for all of us to be able to let go of those things. Because if you're honest with yourself at this moment, whoever hurt you, do they have any idea that they hurt you? Do you think they are even thinking about it? Are you hurting the person that hurt you by holding on to those feelings? Or are you only hurting yourself? And I would venture a guess to say that unless the person who truly hurt you is sitting next to you this morning, they have no idea how you feel. They might not even know that they hurt you so deeply. You see, hurting people hurt people. And holding on to those feelings does not hurt anyone else but yourself. And that's really hard, right? We want to hold on to those feelings. We want to hang on to them, and we want to carry them with us, and we want to use them against the person, right? Again, am I the only one that's experienced this? I hope not. But one of the things that I learned throughout life and my time in ministry is that holding on to things like that do not get us any further ahead in life. And that's what Jesus wants the people around him to know. So that's the first thing I think we need to hear this morning. The second part of this is, he says, those who are willing to hear. If you love only those who love you, why should you get credit for that? Ow. Right? He says, even sinners love those who love them. And if you only do good to those who do good to you, why should you get credit? Ouch. Even sinners do that much. If you lend money only to those who can repay you, why should you get credit? Ouch. Even sinners will lend to sinners for a full return. Jesus has just told us that we are to bless those who curse us, to pray for those who hurt us. How many of us are willing to sit down and pray for someone who's hurt us? Okay, there's a couple. I'm glad to see that. But really, honestly, when somebody hurts us, what's the first thing we want to do? Revenge. Get back at them. Get even. Not to sit down and hit our knees and go, God, help them. But that's what Jesus is telling us to do. He has also given us one of the most important teachings all throughout the Bible in the... Oh, come on. Were you guys paying attention? Well, not the Beatitudes, but close. The golden rule. Whew. You guys are making this tough on me this morning, you know. And why is that so important? It's all about how we should relate to others. You see, if we can't abide with others and treat them better than they treat us, how on earth is anyone ever going to trust us? The whole point of this teaching is for us to get into our hearts that the only way people will trust us is if we are willing to walk the walk of the talk we talk. If we're willing to say those words and to have them come out of our mouths, then we better be living as if we understand and trust them. For us in this moment right now, Jesus is emphasizing that the only way for us to stand out in this world is to be different. And God knows I'm different. The only way people are going to know that we follow Christ is if we act as if we follow Christ. Who's turned on the TV this week? Who has turned on the news this week and then immediately turned it off? This world is full of hurt and pain and oppression and retaliation and anger. Do I need to go on? The thing is, if we are not truly loving all people, then we are falling way short of what we say we are and who we say we are. You see, if we only do good to those who treat us well, then we are falling short of God's commission to us, God's command to love others as we love ourselves. If we cannot give away without expecting something in return, we are not truly giving from our hearts. Jesus' teaching on the plain is a really harsh reality for us. We don't like to look in the mirror, do we? It forces us to look at what's truly looking back at us. But we need to be looking in the mirror and asking ourselves if we are truly living up to what God has called us to do and be in this world. I've run into more people who want to look like they do, but don't necessarily walk the talk. It's a hard truth. It's a hard reality. It's a hard teaching, but it's one that we need to be reminded of a lot. But here's the thing, and this is always the good news of everything that Jesus teaches: God forgives us. The bad part is that we like to go out and do things because we like to do them, regardless as to what the consequences are, right? God still forgives us. So how do we do what we say we're going to do? How do we do what we do? Well, for each of us, that answer is going to look different. But I think Jesus said it best as he ended this teaching by saying, love your enemies, do good to them, lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because he is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful. Be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate to you. Doing good to everyone is not a suggestion, it's a requirement for those of us who are willing to listen. The question we need to answer for ourselves and for the future is, are we willing to listen and then do what Christ is suggesting in this passage? Some thoughts for the coming days. Amen.